Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks to all of you for being here for this award season Q&A for the first season of HBO Max's Our Flag Means Death. I want to welcome everyone here. We have production designer Vincent, director of photography Mike Berlucci, creator, showrunner, and executive producer David Jenkins, executive producer and director of episode 101, and he plays Blackbeard, you know, just a couple jobs there, Taika Waititi, and playing our gentleman pirate Stede Bonnet, Rhys Darby. Well, I want to set the tone here a little bit because this is a really fun show. I love so much. I was saying one of my favorites that I've seen in a while, certainly of, well, 2022 is young, but a lot of other shows have a lot to live up to. You guys have set the bar high. But I would like you guys to jump in. I'm going to set the clock at 30 seconds to sum up season 1 of this show. Are we ready? Ready? Okay. And go.
Okay, guy has midlife crisis, and then he goes on a boat.
I'm on the high seas,
and
he wants to go out on the high seas, and people who are watching, and he's like, it's what they want,
and then he gets stabbed,
they want, and gives up his life, and then goes out there,
they googly eyes each other, and then they finally kiss in episode 9, and then he kills himself.
And beautifully shot.
3,
isn't
2, 1. Okay, there you go. All right, that was it. Very good, very good. Well, I got to start. David, let me start with you because this, of course, is a comedy. But, you know, when those episodes start and you get the little rating up in the corner, this one warns for language and violence. And we don't often see that for comedies. So I got to ask, as you were approaching that material, how you wanted to make violence comedic. And I'm thinking very specifically about when Stede gets stabbed and he's stuck to the mast. And, I mean, it's violence, but it's very funny.
Yeah, that's kind of a goofy one. It's trying to figure out when they get stabbed, like Goofy stabbed, and then he gets like serious stabbed in the third one, which I like. I like that sometimes it's like, woo, the clown got stabbed. And it's like a real stabbing. And then there's kind of like a comedy version of stabbing. So alternating between them is fun.
You know, as I watched the show, I was trying to think like, is there anything I can even compare it to? And there's not really, which then makes me think, why has there never been a show really like this about pirates?
It's too expensive.
Really? Really?
I think so. I don't know. Why hasn't there been a show about this, about pirates?
Pirates aren't cool.
Yeah, it's probably that, the combo.
But we made pirates cool again by making them really uncool.
It's been stuck in the same kind of genre for so long, and we're so used to it. It's turning it on its head was something that needed to be done. Yeah.
You have to shoot on water too, until now, where we have the Mandalorian style screen around the ship that's essentially recreating something from like the 20s, which is a rear projection screen. But it makes it much easier to do, and then you look at like the sound stage that a dinghy is on, and then you're like, oh, shit, this isn't gonna work. And then they make it work. They make like the ocean, and then the oars interact with the water, and then you're like, oh my God, this is great.
Well, yeah, I wanted to ask that. So how many stages are you actually taking up with the ship? I mean, I assume you have obviously the top of the ship, the top deck, and then all of the other like captain's quarters, everything, those, are they separate?
Yeah, we're separated across 2 stages at Warner Brothers, and one of them housed the big upper deck with the sails and masts and everything, and the other stage had all of our below decks environments. So we could go from daylight to under the main deck just by switching stages, and then occasionally we go out to a location.
I've worked with Ra for many years as a production designer, and he never ceases to amaze me. He built an entire pirate ship and used a lot of the methods that they used to do with building pirate ships. I don't know why, no one's going to know that. But he goes there, he puts all the effort in, and like you see all the rigging and stuff, and it's tied in these old styles and stuff. But when you get on the ship, it's an incredible experience just to walk on, and every day that we'd get up onto this boat, and it is an entire ship, and it rocks and rolls and it moves, and they've got people moving lanterns and stuff, and then you've got behind that the big LED screens with the ocean that's also moving. And that first episode that I directed, we had all the British officers and the crew on the boat, and a bunch of them we had to take off because they got seasick.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, didn't anticipate that. So I was going to say, well, I have a question later about happy accidents that happen, but that's not a happy one.
I mean, it made me happy.
I think
Wasn't
actually to build a stage where people can perform and actually feel like they're a bit seasick is a bit of a success. I think for art.
Very successful run.
Yeah. Well, Rhys, I've got to ask you, this character, I don't think he was made for you, but he feels like he was made for you. You get to do so much here. And I don't know, does it feel like you hit the jackpot?
Yes, absolutely. I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but David knew that I was the right guy. And once I got into the words and got into the, well, first of all, it was the costumes, obviously, and the high-heeled shoes. And look, I love watching historical dramas, and pretty much the only shows I watch are period shows. My wife will attest to that. I love pure escapism. I just love it. And so once I got that gear on, I just felt like it was definitely, and you know, it's so much detail in this show, and we've talked about the set and everything like that, but it was magical, and I felt like I could relate to him in some ways because he's a dreamer, and he loves to escape and imagine things. He reads too much and then daydreams about doing those things and then realizes he's got enough money to actually make that happen, and so foolishly does it. And he's out of his comfort zone the whole time. And I think as an actor, as a comedian, that's kind of what I've done in my life, is just leave my little tiny village and go and just try and take on the world just with a small pocket full of jokes. And for some reason it worked. And I guess confidence is a big thing. Presenting yourself, we talk about that in the show, you know, there's just so much I could relate to in that person having to do what he did. I drew upon my own experiences, and then at the end of the day, the hardest part was all the dramatic things that struck me, like being shot and hung and stabbed, and then falling in love with this guy. That was actually pretty easy.
Not acting. You weren't acting there, were you?
You can see it. You weren't acting.
Well, speaking of that guy you fall in love with, Taika, I'm just going to say it. Blackbeard's pretty sexy.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, the hair, you know, it's not to the, you know, one of those kind of like grimy depictions of a pirate. This guy's actually pretty put together, which I really appreciate about what you guys did here. But I don't know, I just kind of know, like, was a pirate, was Blackbeard ever on your list of like, I want to do something like that someday?
Yeah, basically, if you just think of any iconic white roles, they were definitely on my list to take over. No, I never really thought about it. I've never actually, unlike a lot of these guys, I've never really been massively into pirates. It was like a big thing probably in the 80s around Halloween. But it was never on my list of stuff. But then when David said, he said that he'd written the role and was sort of thinking, about me? Were you saying, was that true?
I was
or did you just say
thinking
that
about
to
you.
make me do it?
Well, I was thinking about you writing it because you've got like that really like laconic way of speaking. It's kind of
No, I
laid back.
don't. No, I don't.
Yeah, you do. It's kind of like, it's cool. You're like a man who knows how to find his light.
Oh, you should have done it. Anyway, when I found that out, I was really excited because I've only ever put myself in my stuff because no one will hire me. And then it was just really, yeah, I was flattered but also excited to be able to just act and concentrate on this role.
Well, I didn't think you would do it. And then I was pitching actors for the part, and I was like, what about this actor? And he'd text me back and be like, yeah, he's fine. I'd be like, oh, okay, well, what about him? And he's like, yeah. And then finally it was like, would you?
Waiting.
would you like to play it? You're like, yeah.
Kind of was
so
hoping,
shy.
I was hoping you'd ask me. Yeah. But it was, and in terms of the role, I'm probably the laziest actor you'll meet. The research I did, I went on Wikipedia and I read
Great
about
spot.
4 sentences. I scrolled, I was like, that's too much. And then I read about 3-4 sentences. Found out he was from Bristol, which is like Stephen Merchant's accent. And I was like, nah, not doing that. And then it was like too much work, it's too much effort. And just was like, I remember I texted him, I was like, what accent are you expecting? And he went, yours. I was like, fuck yeah, I'll put it in. I'm in, 100%.
It would have been terrible if you showed up and did some weird accent. Like, there's no... It has to,
Blackbeard?
Yeah, that would have been bad.
But no one knows anything about him, so it's actually the perfect role. No one knows anything about Blackbeard. There's a lot of theories and a lot of, but I think mine's the most authentic. He was like this Maori guy from New Zealand who happened to end up in the Caribbean.
This may be the version that everyone points back to for years to come. Ra, when it comes to the design, we talked about some of like the lower decks and stuff. One of the scenes that I love so much, I think it's 3, when Steed takes Ed into his library. You're like, what the hell are you doing here with books and all this kind of stuff? But then he's like, oh no, wait, I've got this secret passage, the secret door. So tell me about like wanting to incorporate all of that stuff. And then, I mean, the wardrobe, of course, is fantastic. And I think aside from the aesthetics, it said so much right away about the characters too. I thought it was really brilliant.
Well, I guess apart from the written word in the script, following a beautiful description of Steed Bonnet and his kind of his amazing aesthetic or a sense of overt kind of character, you are inspired to create a space that supports that character. And for his library, we went about kind of just building a 360-degree space to perform that would open up and provide surprises for cast. So maybe not everything was spelt out in the script or written down in a plan or talked about beforehand. It kind of evolved as the series went on. So having those unstated kind of surprises for the cast was kind of part of building the narrative for, especially for Steed.
Yeah, we'd get on the set and then, we'd sit in the set and be blocking, and then Ray would go, oh, the fire actually works.
Yeah.
And, and like all these sorts of things that would he'd surprise us all the time. Like, oh yeah, there is a hidden door that goes into the wardrobe.
We'd be in a production meeting and then somebody would go like, so what do you want for the puppet show that goes over the fireplace? And I'd be like, there's no puppet show. I don't know what that is. And then Rob would be like, that's a surprise. That's a surprise. And then you'd go to set and there'd be a little fucking puppet show on the thing and it'd be fantastic. And you could do all this stuff with it because Rod's a magician.
It's the kind of thing that you can't really put down in a spreadsheet for a budget, So that's called kind of a flat, or it's a ceiling panel that we really need. 2 chandeliers.
You make it work. Mike, we've certainly touched on it here a lot already, how many kind of different tones there are throughout the show that really kind of work so seamlessly together. A lot of that has to come from your job as a cinematographer, specifically to what you guys saw here. You did episode 10, yeah?
Yep.
5 episodes total here, but talk to me about adapting with the changes in tone, because that happens a lot per episode even.
Yeah, it does. I feel like it was just guided so much by Rhys and the rest of the cast, Taika, and we'd watch these rehearsals and kind of just see how it played out, and we would just go with it on a day-to-day basis. I can't say there was a lot of, we always had ideas for scenes and how we wanted them to work, and maybe some blocking ideas, but it was really very spontaneous, which was a lot of fun, always challenging, and Taika, you.
He's basically Mike is the reason the whole thing looks real. You know, you get on there, you're like, oh man, it feels good to look at this big LED screen. Is this going to look real? And he's a magician as well. He like made this whole thing. Also, by the way, I keep forgetting that I've only really ever seen your face with a mask on. So
Yeah,
like
that's
the
true.
first time, I keep getting reminded you've got this wonderful, wonderful 70s moustache, and it's just
Surprise.
it's doing everything for me.
You look like a PI.
Yeah,
You look
he
like you're
looks like
detective. It's wonderful. It is wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, you told me that day.
private
one.
investigator. Also, what did I say? You look like the love child of Jake Gyllenhaal and Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Thank you. I'll take it.
Yeah. But better watch it. He's got his eyes on someone else down there. Yeah. But to your point about, you know, keeping, you know, changing things up and keeping things fresh, you know, was there then or even the challenges that come along with that, a scene that was particularly hard to shoot, or one that all of you thought like, oh, this one's going to be fine, and it turned out to be a bit more taxing than you?
Yeah. I'd say most of them. Yeah.
That was most days shooting this, I feel like.
Yeah.
It was a complicated show.
Yeah.
It's a very hard thing to shoot, right? Because there's between 10 and 15 people all the time, and you've got to deal with them all and you got to deal with actors who are like nuts and give everyone something to do.
Yeah.
This was also tried an experiment in a lot of ways. You know, having a massive boat that never goes anywhere near the water on a stage that's completely dry with a giant television screen, and, you know, having an ensemble cast who have to work around basically a process screen that only covers you from one side. So even though I guess going into it we felt confident that we could do it, no one had actually done it yet. So I think by the time we got to episode 3 we were well into our stride.
Basically, now it's the only thing we know how to do.
Yeah, I think the most water we had outside of the beach day was a 4x4 tank filled with water that we threw some books into on the side of the ship.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
That's in
That
10,
was it.
where they throw Steed's books overboard. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, that was very
I was going to say something profound. Like the mighty Kraken, this ship and all its undertaking was colossal. The project to make it work, much like the sea beast, it needed many, many arms. And those arms coming together created what we see here tonight on the screen.
I don't even know how to keep going after that, but we still have more time. Ladies and
Also,
gentlemen,
see that? We're from New Zealand.
parting gift.
We're from New Zealand, and we don't drop it. We don't drop the mic. Just go. And then that's what I'm going to say about that.
Someone might need to use these mics after us.
Roll it around.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
You can play with that the rest of the Q&A.
I didn't write that either. I just came up with that then. That's why people will be like, oh, you probably wrote that earlier.
Yeah.
I don't. I just...
It's just there immediately. Though, you know, that's a great segue, though. How much of this did we get to do on set?
I would have loved to have done more, but there's like the colossal...
But the Kraken
comes back to that
the
word.
beast of the shoot.
Yeah, the Kraken, time and everything. And, you know, we've got a lot of actors that can improvise. But there were certainly moments that when us two are in scenes together where we just said, well, we're going to make some shit up anyway. So
On the beach, talking about the restaurant. The
Every
gift shop.
scene that we two, what is it? Every scene that us two, every scene that us guys. That doesn't sound like, that doesn't sound right. Every scene that us guys are in, every scene that we do. We're just like this.
it's magic.
This bit didn't make it in.
Magic
And then you
for
try
me.
to edit something out
Magic
of that.
for you.
Yes.
Get your cracking arms around me and take me.
Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze.
And
me
this is what
tight.
you had to deal with every day.
Up and
You're having to
down.
deal with it now.
Well, no, I'm gladly. No, but
Yeah, it was important
Obviously
too,
you-
because
yeah.
but the writing, of course, was always great. So it's already there. So it's just there was moments where we just went, especially when David was looking at us too and said, let us do a little bit of just like, God, be who you guys are. And that's where the honesty and the truth behind it comes in. And also the most, comedy is pretty easy for us too, but the can't even say it, dramatic.
Don't even say it.
It scares
we can't even say it.
The pathos, the serious stuff.
don't be scared of it.
was absolutely a delight to do because the two of us together, and we already had a relationship, but then bringing back, our individual pasts and our fathers and our upbringings, that we have a similar thing going on, and so we drew in.
We grew up with solo mums.
Yeah, we drew in some pain, and it was fucking magical to do that naked. No, not naked, but like
Yeah, sometimes.
being emotionally naked together.
Yeah. Did that lead to any kind of like happy accidents along the way, David?
What do you mean?
See, I told you I was going to bring it back.
Well, with something we'd like to announce. I don't know how it happened. No, what do you mean?
Yeah, what do you mean?
No, just things that weren't
Mate,
planned
what do you
for.
mean?
Things that you hadn't planned in the moment. You were like, oh, we can use this. We can take it and build on it. Or
Yeah,
Something.
and of course, and like the scene when we're around the fire, when we go on our little adventure, and various other moments when we're together in a situation where we can just, a lot of it's subtle, but
As you can tell, him and I really subtle actors. Very subtle.
Yeah.
You are subtle. You had moments where the thing in the bathtub where you tell him that you were going to kill him and burn his face off, and then
That was
you're
good
like,
acting.
oh, don't send me to doggy heaven, and you connect, and it's watching that happen. It was like, this is good. I believe this. I believe all of this, and it was subtle and sweet. You were very kind to each other.
I
It was
cried,
good.
David.
I liked it.
I cried in that scene, David.
You were ready to go.
Also,
I
when
didn't
we
even
went
use
on
a
the,
tear stick. I just thought of my horrible childhood.
What about taking it back to episode 5 when you went crazy on that ship with all the fancy people? That
that was amazing. I loved that. You guys loved that.
He just.
What are we doing?
Oh my God, what are you doing?
He went to town, and I just, as my character, just had to stand there, sort of knowing that, oh God, this is not going to go well, and it was good for me. I mean, I had to really try hard, just because I just wanted to join in with you, be an idiot as well, because that's what I love doing.
a specific moment I want to talk about, episode 8. I'm sorry if you've not seen it yet. We're going to spoil it right now. But it's really this culmination of moments between the two of you leading up to when the ship is overtaken, you're being captured, and it doesn't even matter to Steed in that moment because Blackbeard has come back. You're both, in shackles and handcuffs, lying down, and first of all, getting Fleetwood Mac. I want to know how that happened, and I understand you wrote the scene with that in mind. But then, second question: what would you have done if you did not get the rights?
I made sure they cleared it right away. That was the first thing before we were even done scripting. It was like, I want this, clear it, make sure they will actually pay for it because it's expensive. And then they did it. And then it was like, okay, cool. Well, I can write this in now and not make a headache for everybody.
It's a brilliant scene. Fleetwood Mac, the chain, it's so good. So that build up to that moment, tell me about getting to that point with your characters, what you kind of gone through, and what it all meant in that moment. Because even we see like the foot slide over, and because you can't really like touch hands or connect, but you did in that way.
That was not scripted. I just wanted my foot to touch his foot. And I felt we were lying there and we couldn't touch. Exactly that. I thought he would just go like that.
Yeah, we were staring at each other, and it was nice. Yeah, I think the thing with Steed is that he just wants to feel something. That's why he did this whole adventure. That's why he left, because his life was so dreary, and because he was an aristocrat and he had everything, and he never got to make a single choice, and he wanted to. So that, once again, even though his life could have ended at that point, he felt the most amazing he's ever felt in his life, because someone he really cares about is right there staring at him, and he could have. One of those moments where you could go, I could die right now and I'd be happy. That old cliche. And I guess that's.
But that moment for the crew, who didn't know it was going to happen, that happened through quite a few episodes. There were moments of just pure genius that happened spontaneously that nobody was ready for, but it came out of these really brilliant performers. And, being a spectator to that live art was amazing. Not to mention really hard to keep from crying with laughter, and just being there to witness amazing performances like a spontaneous foot tap.
Yeah, it was a cool show to make because you would alternate between like goofy and really broad, and then there are these moments where it's nice. It's nice when it just sinks in and it's not diffused and you actually feel something. And then watching them listen to each other and take each other in a comedy and be like, well, we're not going to go to Mars here. We're actually, this will be grounded. Mixing those two flavors, I think, is what I like to see. And then watching you two do it and execute it was a joy. So, yeah.
Well, so then we get to episode 9, which you guys have seen here. And please, by the way, don't tweet anything about it. It hasn't aired yet. But leading up to the kiss, which I don't know, were there gasps in here? Was it that kind of reaction a bit unexpected? But it was so sweet and tender and wonderful. I got to know, how soon did you guys know? I suspect maybe you did as an executive producer, but knew things were leading to that. Did you tell them pretty early on?
I think it was when we met in 1994.
It's been building that long.
It was obvious at that point.
I just knew. I just saw him. I was like,
I mean, I actually went for
I think
you.
it was about 18 years to wait. But
Remember when I leant over and then
30, 20? How many years is that?
it was a split second. I realized, and it wasn't you, and I was embarrassed. I'd pull back, and then I drunk that night. I tell you.
I knew about it. David told me about it, and I was all in for that. I mean, I was actually assuming that we'd end up going there anyway, and it wasn't a big deal for me. I loved it.
I think
it just
to,
felt like a natural progression for their relationship.
They have to kiss, like, and it is like, okay. I mean, it's a very, I would say, kind of chaste in a way. It's emotionally very available, but I kind of felt, and I don't know, Rhys, how you felt about it, but in the writer's room, I was like, Steve doesn't know much about a mature relationship, about being in love. Like, he's been in relationships where he's been an arranged marriage, but it dawns on him that he's in love in the last episode. And I like the sweetness of that kiss, because there's something like, oh man, he's quite inexperienced in falling in love. And I think that's what I find really moving about the kiss itself. It's I believe it. I believe that it's dawning on him at the end of the season that yes, he is in love. It happened to him.
I also think it's nice to not have to put audiences through like a Mulder and Scully kind of like long drawn out thing. You're like, oh, just do it. It's nice to just go there straight away.
But then what happens after? There's so much heartbreak for Blackbeard, which I don't know. I guess was also unexpected, certainly in a way too. So getting to play all of those levels. I mean, we wouldn't expect this kind of character. Of course, it's not exactly based on true life, but that you get to play with those different levels. I don't know. I as an audience, love watching it. For you, must be a great joy.
Yeah, and also for me, it's we've all been in love. We've all had our hearts broken. I just likened it to that. It's like it's sort of a high school love, really. It's like Blackbeard, I don't think has ever been in love either. And that time, the butterflies in your stomach, and like what happens? You're like, oh, just what are they up to? When Blackbeard's on the beach and he's like looking out, going, what is he up to? Oh, it's like that stuff's still going on now. Mm-hmm. I still do that, and just the idea of I want to see what happens next. I want to see what happens when they're reunited at a party. It's like, hey, how's it going?
Don't give it away.
It's
But yeah, it's with that. Also, he's human, Blackbeard, and you see that there, and that's really important because once again, it's the old pirate trope of this being this awful villain. He was, but underneath that, there's a guy there that just wants to be loved, and
literally.
it's like a colossal.
He does have a colossal admission in the end. I do love the scene when Steed tells his wife, not his widow, not a widow, when she asks, what's her name? You say, Ed. And it's just kind of a perfect wrap-up of that.
I really enjoyed doing that scene, any scene with Claudia, because it's great. She's got a great energy, and it was a special moment because finally those two had come together again in an understanding that, the reason he took off was because there was no happiness there, and yeah, it was quite a shock to be able to, get a hug out of her after what he'd done, but that speaks volumes for her character to be, at the end of the day, understanding that my guy was just a complete numpty who needed a long time to find who the hell he was, and he's finally almost got there,
Yeah.
So it was really cool.
Really important moment. We're going to be wrapping up here soon, but I can't let you guys go without talking about this. I mean, first of all, the supporting cast is fantastic. You had a lot of really great guest stars too. Just about that kind of collaboration. It's a pretty big cast. Obviously, lots of scenes that are pretty isolated, one or two people at a time, but those group scenes are so much fun too.
It's an amazing cast. I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches. The amount of talent in the cast, and just finding everyone for each of the roles, and the amazing actors that audition just to begin with, and then to whittle it down to these like really exceptional performers that I think they all come from different tribes, where Con O'Neill was like on Chernobyl, and Rory Kinnear is also like, practically Sir Rory Kinnear, like he's a very, refined actor. And then to have really able comedy performers like Taika and Rhys that can do naturalism, and then to have like sketch performers like Leslie Jones, to throw them all into the mix, and then they kind of form a company together, that's like a joy of making, I think, naturalistic ensemble comedy. And when it happens, when they fuse, it's like you don't know what it's going to look like, but it's going to be great.
Well, last thing I got to ask, Taika, you've kind of alluded to it, wondering what will happen next with them. Are there lots of thoughts already, discussions? I know we are awaiting renewal news, but have your minds already gone there?
I have no idea. David won't tell me anything. So I don't.
We're picked up. They just picked us up. No. They didn't pick us up.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
They didn't.
Talk about
Did
heartbreak.
do we have a pickup? Did we get a pickup? No.
Did that encourage it right there? If you say it, they've got to do it then.
I think they should. I mean, I said it here, so we're probably picked up. No, we're not picked up. Are we? No.
Anyone have that answer?
Anything.
No.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see. No spoilers until we get spoiled with a second season.
Oh, yeah.
Fair enough.
I do think this show is, one of the, like when I first heard it, I was like, a pirate show? Pirates? I don't want to see this. Outside of the period part of this show and its pirates and it being elevated, I do, and I tell this to people all the time, it's a universal story, and it's very reflective of, I think, how a lot of us are living or want to live right now, especially me coming here to Hollywood I think everywhere in the world there are people that you get to a certain age, you're like, did I do it right? Did I follow the dream I had when I was a kid? Am I doing what I always wanted to do? And it takes a certain amount of bravery, even though this character is, on screen, a bit of a buffoon. He's goofy. He has no idea what he's doing, and he's a failure at what he's doing. He's, in my opinion, the most courageous character in the show because, he's done something very dangerous and daring and left a very stable life And I don't think anyone that I know is courageous enough to do that and to say, you know what, I'm not at the place that I always wanted to be. And I really love that about the show, is that it's about a character who we shouldn't believe in, who, you know, and because he does what he does, he frees his wife, he frees himself, he finds true love, and he gets the adventure he's always wanted. And so I think it's a very triumphant show in that sense, and I think, you know, that we in 2022 have to, like, can take something from that, and yeah, and I think it's very inspiring.
Well, the word's been used here a couple times tonight. This show, I really think, really is magic. So congratulations, you guys, on it. It's really impressive what you've done from top to bottom. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much to all of you, and thanks to all of you guys for being here. Thanks.
Thanks, man.